Hello everybody, how are you? Hope you're doing well. So here Dr. Abdul Haq Snachki. Today we are going to discuss about the last lecture class, the structure of a research report. So your journey through the world of research has taken you through the steps involved in choosing your research question, developing hypothesis, choosing a strategy or a general strategy and a specific design to test your hypothesis, and then we describe and analyze the data. So now the final step is to tell the world what you did and what you found. So reporting your research result is perhaps the most important step because it is only by this reporting that research and science progress. Other scientists working in the field need to know what you have done, the questions you have asked, the methods you have used to address them, and the answers you have found. So this step not only essential for progress but also required to assess the reliability of your finding and the soundness of your conclusions. Only when your research has been reported can others, attempt to replicate and extend your finding. Effectively, also communicating the result of your research requires you to know what must be said and how to communicate it clearly and in a proper format. So here, now in this lecture class, we are going to discuss how to organize and present research finding. Even if you are not planning to pursue a career in academic research, but trust me, you will find it much of the information contained in this lecture class is valuable because many occupations, especially those at the managerial or technical level, require to organize the fact, to draw conclusions and to present the fact and conclusions clearly and logically in a written report. So although the format and content of this report are likely to differ from the report of your future work, the general principle of organization and composition should be the same. So we start, the first one is writing an APA style research report. So in Utah, mostly we use APA, research report, and also in most all major, journals that, publish articles, also they use the APA style reference report. So based on the APA reference report, you select 8.5 to 11-inch paper setting. So the APA refers, or prefers Times New Roman font and use, a serif, typeface to for the body of the paper. Use sans serif typeface for the figure. So also use a double spacing throughout the paper. Use a double space after periods that end sentence also in the body of the manuscript. Disable right justification and automatic hyphenation. In APA we don't have double justification. So use a single space after periods in references and after initials. Use a single space after comma, colons, and semi-comma. Also, based on the APA style, you set all margin to at least 1 inch left, right, top, and bottom. A type line should not be more than 6.5 inch in length. indent the first line of paragraph except for the abstract and the first line of the block codes. Print the manuscript on 8.5 times 11-inch heavy white bond paper, and every page you have to running head flush to the left margin. On the title page only type the words running head before your running head, and has a maximum of 50 characters only, including spaces, and is typed in all capital letters, and a page number to the right of the running head. So also in the heading structure, central and boldface, upper and lowercase as level 1, and flush left, boldface, upper and lowercase in level 2. Indented boldface, lowercase paragraph heading editing with a period is level 3. And also we have indented boldface, italicized lowercase paragraph heading ending with a period as a level 4, and indented italicized lower paragraph heading with a period also in level 5. But normally we use only level 1, 2, and 3 most of the report. So in the title page, you have to include the following: the running head, a short version of your title, maximum 50 characters, typed in all capital letters, flush left, following the words running head. So the page number to the right of the running head, the title of the page not more than 12 words only, and you include the author's name, author's institution affiliation, and author notes. And we can see his example. For example, this is the running head, and here's the title, and this is the author affiliation, and this is the note, and we go to the abstract. An abstract is a concise summary between 150 to 150 words. Some of the journals, they make it up to 300. So abstract for an empirical study should include the information in the problem and the study. What is the issue of this study, or what is the objective of this study? Then the nature of a subject sample or in the methodology, and description of the method used, including equipment, procedures, gathering the data and the names of the tests you use. Then a statement of the finding or the major finding, including information on statistical significance level, effect size, and confidence intervals. And the last statement on the conclusion drawn, including policy implication and limitation. Also, abstract must be accurate, non-evaluative, and coherent and readable. So, formatting the abstract, you start the abstract on a new page and number it as page 2. Type the word abstract centered on the line below the running head and the page number. Start the abstract on the text line, on the next line, and also do not indent the first line of the abstract. Type a list of keywords centered immediately below the abstract, and we can see this is in this graph. So here we have the abstract, the title, and here the content of the abstract. After we finish, we have the keyword here. So you can see the first one is the issue or the objective, and then the participant and the methodology, the use, and the major finding and a conclusion at the end. Then after you finish the abstract, we go to the introduction. In the introduction usually has the following information: an introduction to the topic and the study. You would describe what is the scenario in that particular issue. Then a brief review of research finding and theories related to the topic if your major issue is lack of knowledge. So introduction will be some sort of literature review. But if your major problem is descriptive phenomenon, so introduction will be more a descriptive of that phenomenon and a scenario of that phenomenon happening. Then after you give a very good background of the study, you come out to the problem statement or research problem. Then statement of research or the purpose of the research or the objective, then a brief description of a research strategy and a description of prediction and hypothesis. Usually hypothesis, we develop it after we do literature review. And as I told you here, but if let's say your problem statement or issue is lack of knowledge in a theoretical background on empirical studies, then your introduction will be some sort of the literature review, and you can develop your hypothesis. Don't forget that start the introduction on the new page, page 3. Center the title of the paper at the top of the page and start the introduction immediately below the title. And do not type the heading, introduction. So remember, in APA style, we follow general to specific organization. First you present the general introduction of your topic, then narrow it to literature review, chapter 2, and then link your literature review to your topic, then state your hypothesis. Then after here, you can see this is the narrowest, point here. Then we can see here a sample, of introduction. Then we go to the method now. After you do your introduction literature review and you come to the the more specific research questions, what you are going to address, we come the method section. Include information on how the study was carried out. Subsection, like participant or subject, subsection. Describe the participant or a subject sample in details. Details regarding the human participant are described in a participant subsection. And if you are using animal subject, are described in a subject subscription. This is usually for medical things or science. Apparatus or materials as a subsection provide detailed information regarding to the equipment or materials used in this research if you have. If equipment is used, it is described in apparatus subsection, and information regarding written materials is described in the material subsection. And the procedure of subsection: first, describe exactly how the study was carried out. The condition to which subject were exposed or under which they were observed, the behaviors measured and how they were scored, or the measurement of the variables, when and where observations were made, and debriefing procedures as we explained earlier. So enough details should be provided in all sections so that another researcher could produce its essential details and start the method section immediately after the literature review or the introduction. In terms of you are doing a paper, center the word method as a level 1 heading, and this is we have something like that here, the methods, then you have the participant, the design, the materials, and so on. Then there is a section, all relevant data summarized, and analysis are reported in a result section. You should be, used to present raw data. Data should be summarized. A result of descriptive and inferential statistic should support the verbal description. Descriptive statistic, for example, you have the mean, standard deviation, and etc. And inferential statistic, for example, t-test and analysis of the variance, and other statistical results. Readers should be informed about statistical tests applied and the order in which they were applied. And also start the result section immediately at the end of the method section. Start on new page if necessary is better. Type the level 1 heading result on the first double space line after the running head and the page number. Do not provide every statistic shown on the computer or output, and provide only the relevant statistic. So this is will be an example here, the result, centered, then you have a description of your result here. So this is commonly used statistical citation. For example, analysis of the variance. We have F statistic, p-value, T statistic. So usually this is the format of the table you are going to follow based on APA style. Don't forget to have abbreviation at the beginning before even you start an abstract. To define the meaning of each abbreviation. For example, CI confidence interval, DF degrees of freedom, F ratio, and so on. So the discussion section is when the results are interpreted, conclusions drawn, and findings are related to the previous research or theory. So for law specific now to general organization, you still remember we start from general to specific. Now we vice versa, from the specific, then we generalize the things. So start with a brief restatement of hypothesis and indicate whether they were supported or no. So tie the result to previous research and theory. Is the result are similar, to previous research? If the result is confirming the theory or opposing the theory, provide a broad implication of the result, methodological issues and suggestion for future research. And we can see here now, after we reach the point where we write our methodology and say a question, and then we go from specific, to general. Specific, state your hypothesis to major finding. Then we tie, your result to previous research and theory. And in general, we state the broad implication of your result, implication, direction for future research, and this will be as a board. Then the discussion section also, you should first start the discussion section immediately at the end of the result section. Start a new page if necessary. And second, type the level 1 heading discussion on the first double, space line after the running head and the page, number, and will be like that. See, this is the discussion here. Then you start discussing all your result one after one. So what does it mean by policy implication? A policy implication, after you do your conclusion, you provide a policy implication. So a policy implication refers to something which is implied or suggested as naturally being inferred or understood in a certain policy. It is consequence of meaning that is implied by statement or an action. So a policy recommendation also is a statement that makes a specific proposal for action. Example, agency X should do the following. When you write policy implication, always we use should, agency should, government should, policy makers should. So policy implication also interpret data in ways that are useful to policymakers, but without specifying precisely what should be done. Remember, your policy implication, they should develop and derive from your finding. They should be 100%, derived from your finding. The statement suggests that the government, for example, should devote more attention to air pollution, but it does not recommend any specific measures. How useful this policy implication would be depend on the context. If the finding is surprising and the government is currently ignoring air pollution, so then simply pointing out the seriousness of the problem could be very useful. But if, let's say, the finding is not surprising, then this is already known. You have to be very specific now and shows how this devoting to more attention to air pollution could bring a better result. So a future for our features of a good policy making, we have forward-looking. A statement of intended outcomes is prepared at the early stage, contingency or scenario planning and taking into account in executives' long-term strategy. And then we have outward looking, when you look at how other countries have dealt with the issue. We have an innovative, flexible, and creative policy, implication uses alternative to the usual way of working. So you bring something new, and then evidence-based review existing research and you come out with a policy implication. So modernizing government, white papers in 1999 could be an example for that. So also it is an inclusive control those responsible for service delivery implementation, or maybe join up a joint working arrangement with other department, clearly defined and well understood, and you have learn lessons account available of what was done by policymakers as a result of lessons learned. Communication, where communication or presentation strategy prepared and implemented. And we have evaluation and review clearly also define a purpose of the evaluation set or at the outset. And so you can see modernizing a government white paper 1999 for a more explanation. Then we come to the reference section. So the reference section provides a biographical list of preferences cited in the report. So you have to list all articles, books, or other sources cited in the body of the paper or of your report. Any references listed in reference section should be cited in the text. Also, formatting and APA style references use hanging indent for all references, leave a single space after periods, provide the last name of the author and the initial, provide date, the title of article, journal name, volume number, page number, and the digital object identifier or DOI system number. Also, follow all APA style punctuation rules, follow APA style for different reference entries, example book, chapter in edited book, internet source. Start the reference section in a new page and type the word references centered on the first double space, line after the running head of the page number. Type the word reference says is not bold-faced and it is not level 1 hidden, and this is an example. So you type references here, then you have alphabetical arrangement of all your references. So how references format, we have print or an electronic source DOI available, for example, the second name of the author, the initial, then you have the second one, the third one, and the last you put and by the sign of and, and then followed by the year, the title of the article, journal names, then volume, page number, then DOI. Print source available, so you don't have DOI, but similar like this, except that you don't have DOI number. Electronic source DOI are not available also, almost same, but you just put retrieve from, then you put the link where you have retrieved the article. So we have books. So you have the second name of the author followed by initial, then the year in between two brackets, the title, then the place where the books is published, and the publisher. So you can follow that all. So how we we reference the tables, use to present complex information. Format for tables is to include a title, a number hidden, a body, and a note if necessary. Separate page should be created for each table if necessary. Include the running head and page number for each table page, and tables should be placed after the reference section. So here's an example, table 1, then after new line, title of the table, then you have the table, and the last you have the note or a source. So about the figures, and graphs, drawing, and photographs are commonly used type of figures. Format of figures, we have each figure goes on its own page. A figure should be scaled and presented properly. A figure caption should be included below the figure. Legends appear within the figure. A figure page, includes running head and page number, and figure should be positioned after table pages in the paper. So we have like that. But you can see here the title of the figure is below, not up like in the title. Then also you can have here note or the source of the figure if you take it from somewhere else. So citing references in your report. Citation include names of the authors, the date of publication of the source, and specific pages if required. Format of citation depend on how one chooses to write a sentence that includes the citation. So this is if one article, Jones 2010. If two articles same year, we put Jones 2010A and John 2010B. If two articles with the same author but different years, so John 2009, 2010. Personal communication, Smith, personal communication, July 15. So, author named in parentheses. This is one. When we start the beginning the sentence, this is if you put it at the end. So Jones, 2010, or if it is two articles same year, Jones, 2010A, 2000B, and so on. So another two authors, Smith and Jones, then 2010. And if you have more than two authors, Smith, Jones, and K, 2010. But if it is between a bracket and stick to use and, we use the sign of and. Others are similar. So how now we cite quoted materials, includes direct quotes in, quotation marks. That is very important to so that people, they understand that it is not your writing but others. Provide full citation information, author last name, your year of publication, and page numbers. For quote over 40 words, set the quoted materials off in a block paragraph format without quotation marks. A new paragraph, a word paragraph intended, do not intend first line any further. So for citation information, including page number, follow the block quote unless it is provided in a sentence including the block page. So this is, for example, is direct quotation. So John Watson once famously stated, then you can see it is out of the, is not similar to the previous, text when you're writing and you have the author name, then year, and the page number. That page number is a must, is necessary. So using numbers, spell out numbers lower than 10. Use numerals for numbers 10 and above. So use numerals when a number immediately precedes a unit of measurement. Example, 5 mg dose. Representing a statistical or mathematical function, percentage, ratios, percentile, and quartiles. Example, multiplied by 4, the second percentile. Representing time, date, ages, sample, and population size, specific number of subject in an experiment, scores, and a point on the scale, a sum of money, and numerals as numerals. For example, the longitudinal study took 4 years. The number of the scale range from 0 to 10. Discuss in a specific place in an ordered series, part of books, and each number in the list of 4 or more number. Example, grade 2, table 1. So also use numerals for all numbers that appears in the abstract of a paper or in a graphical display. Express number in words when a number begins with a sentence, title, or leading. For example, 20 subjects were assigned. Numbers represent a common fraction. For example, 2/3 of the class. Numbers represent universally accepted usage. For example, 5 books of Moses. So avoiding biased language, Biased language occurs when one inadvertently, uses language that implies that one group is preferred over another, or that it may be offensive to a group of people. The APA has three the guidelines to avoiding biased language. I will explain it, now. So, as I say, the biased language occurs when you inadvertently use a language that presupposes that one group is preferred over another, or that may be offensive to a group of people. For example, by using the male, pronoun he or to express ideas generally, so we fall into the trap of bias writing. The APA publication many years gives three guidelines, to follow, as I mentioned just now. The first one refer to providing descriptions at the appropriate level of specificity. For example, when you describe ethnic groups, avoid using general terms such as Asian or Hispanic, and still be specific. If your participant were Chinese or Puerto Rican, use those two specific terms. Then there may also be some confusion over when to use the term gender or sex. The terms gender is used when referring to men and women in a social or cultural context. The term sex is a biological term and is used when referring to biological differences between men and women based on APA 2010. So there are two general rules to follow with respect describing a group. First, when in doubt, always use a more specific term. Second, the group descriptors only when they are relevant. So the second guidelines is, deal with in issues of labeling. You should be sensitive to the labels you attach to people. Avoid labeling groups of people. For example, the label or the elderly categorizes people as if they were objects. The term elderly people is preferred based on APA 2010. Also, in this category, it is writing that elevates one own group above others. For example, the phrase men and wives, implies that males are the standard by which women are to be judged, based on APA 2020. But in this case, husband and wife, would be better. Finally, be aware of the fact that the order in which, your list group may imply a superiority of one group over another. For example, if you always mention white participant before black participant, may imply that superiority of the white over the black. To avoid this mix, the order in which you present, group identifiers. Finally, be aware that the appropriateness of the labels may change over time. So the third guideline is suggest you to refer to individuals who participate in your essay in a way that acknowledges their participant. For example, rather than saying participant were run in this group of four, say participant completed the experiment in groups of four. The latter sentence conveys that participants were active, in experiment, which they were. So the APA publication manual 2010 in page 70 to 77, provide an extended discussion of these three guidelines, just outlined, as well as discussion of specific area of concern, example, racial and ethical identity, gender, sexual preferences, and disabilities. Now, keep in mind, however, that avoiding biased language should not come at the expense of precision and accuracy. An attempt to avoid offending anybody may obscure important information. The APA urges that you use good judgment rather than a set of rigid rules concerning what is acceptable, writing. Then we have also I would like to continue here. You see, we have an expression and organization and the style. So as a rule, you should also write using an active voice in a sentence. That is, sentences would allow a subject, verb, object organization. So note the difference, for example, in the following two sentences. The first is a passive voice, where I say a questionnaire was given to each participant to complete. And another sentence, which is an active voice, I can say, I gave a questionnaire to each participant to complete. So using the personal pronouns I or we is acceptable in APA style and is even preferable because it encourages writing in the active voice. So in years past, authors, were encouraged to write in the third person, but current APA style allow you to write in the first person. Perhaps the most common flaws in student papers are poorly expressed ideas, an organized representation of ideas, and a sloppy presentation style. You can have a good handle on your research topic, procedures and result, but still, be unable to communicate them well to your readers. And clear writing and disorganized presentation obscure important point. So in your writing, you should express your ideas clearly and concisely to your research. So we continue about this. Improper grammar also can seriously interfere with precision and clarity of your manuscript or your report. Unfortunately, students often do not pay close enough attention to the grammatical structure of their sentences. A result of this can be ambiguous sentences. Consider the following example. For example, the experimenter recorded how fast each rat ran the maze with a stopwatch. So in this example, the writer's intention was to say that the experimenter used a stopwatch to time the rat running speed. Instead, you get, the image of the rat running, the maze while holding, a stopwatch. So the problem here is that the modifier with stopwatch is misplaced in such a way that is referred to the rat, not to the experimenter. So the following rewritten sentence is ambiguous and consequently much clearer. For example, instead to write the sentence as the experimenter recorded how fast each rat ran the maze with a stopwatch, you can say, using a stopwatch, the experimenter timed each rat running speed. So here, the modifier is properly attached to the experiment. So another common grammatical, error is the disagreement between subject and verb. In the following incorrect sentence, the verb goes with the word records and not one. For example, only one of the subject record were included in the analysis. So this sentence should be corrected as follows. Only one of the subject record was included in the analysis. So also a proper word voice is the second aspect of a clear writing. Make sure you select words that convey your idea or ideas as you intend. For example, in general writing, the words feel and believe are used interchangeably. In scientific writing, however, they may mean very different things based on APA 2010. Choose the word that most accurately convey your meaning. If you mean believe, then say believe. Unnecessary qualifiers also reduce clarity of expression. Perhaps such as axiomatically equal and particularly strong are imprecise, and different readers may interpret them differently. Be specific when referring to quantity estimate. Moreover, be careful about using a pronoun in place of nouns, specifically in long sentences. Following the meaning of the sentence with multiple mentions of they or it and so on is difficult. So also avoid using a complex words when a simple word would suffice. For example, uh, uh, don't say masticate when you mean chew, or cogitate when you mean think. This based on whole 1979, page 84. In addition, never utilize the word utilize, use instead. Constant use of fancy words becomes tedious to read. Based on your choice on how well a word conveys your meaning, not on how intelligent you think it makes you sound. If a complex word best conveys your meaning, example, clandestine implies much more than secret, use it. In other cases, use preferred simple word. Using jargons also can also reduce the clarity. Jargons refer to the use of technical vocabulary even when the vocabulary is not relevant. Not all readers will know what you mean by these terms, so it is best to avoid them if possible. For example, using the term voir dire in French throughout the article may confuse readers who are not familiar with legal terminology. It would be better to use term jury selection. So also you should express your ideas in a concise economical manner based on APA 2010. Three major flaws in writing written economy of expression: wordiness, redundancy, and unit length. Wordiness refer to using one more words than necessary to express an idea clearly. For example, wordy one, there were several participants who equipped additional assistance. Better, you make it in economical way, several participants require additional assistance. So the currently popular phrase, the exact same, is not only grammatically suspect. Exactly the same would be better. It used three words when one will do, identical. So redundancy also occur when words duplicate a meaning already conveyed by the other words. In the following example, the word past is redundant. The participant past history was examined. Unit length concern the length of sentence within a paragraph. So using too many short sentences create a choppy style. Using excessively involved long sentence can be confusing. So vary the length of the sentences within the paragraph to establish and maintain the interest of your reader. Attention to unit length also extend to the length of paragraph based on APA 2010. So a topic we may yourself discover read about. So after we talk about the organization now, whereas clarifying clarity of an expression relate most closely, to the structure of sentence. Organization also relates to how you organize those sentences into paragraphs and how you weave paragraphs into entire paper. So you can write the most beautiful grammatically correct sentence, yet you may fail to convey your ideas clearly. A paragraph is more than a collection of grammatically correct sentences. You must weave those sentences into a coherent, unified entity that clearly convey information to your readers. So paragraphs can include 4 types of sentences based on Cruz 1980. These are team sentences, support sentences, limiting sentences, and traditional sentences. The team sentence, which is usually the first sentence in the paragraph, conveys to your reader the topic of the paragraph. Support sentences follow the team sentence and support and elaborate the theme. Limiting sentences indicate possible limits to the assertion made in the theme sentence. And finally, transitional sentences smoothly shift from one idea to another within a paragraph. These 4 types of sentences could be combined to achieve a unity. Cruz 1980 also suggests 4 general rules to help you to attain unity within paragraph. First, make only one major point within a paragraph. Second, make your theme sentence the most general sentence within a paragraph. All subsequent sentences should focus on the theme stated in the theme sentences. Then third, stick to the theme stated at the outset of the paragraph. Unity is disrupted when you stray, from the point. Then the last one, the fourth, use a complete sequences of limiting or supporting sentences. That is, if you have something positive to say about a topic, list all positive elements before turning to a negative. Also, avoid a long or short paragraph. Paragraphs can become confusing when too long. Overly long paragraphs also are a common error we have encountered in student writing. So if a paragraph runs longer than one double space manuscript page, look for places to break the paragraph in shorter ones. So breaking a long paragraph into shorter ones provide pauses for your readers and is preferable to a single, overly long paragraph. So as a general rule, deal with only a major topic in paragraph. Weave together paragraphs to create a unified and a consistent narrative that will hold your reader's intention. Avoid confusing your readers with too much information packed into too little space. On a similar note, you also should avoid using a sequence of overly short paragraphs. Overusing 1 or 2 sentence paragraphs break up the flow of your writing and makes it abrupt and difficult to read. If you find you have many short paragraphs, see if you can organize your idea to create fewer but longer paragraphs. So now we go. Also, you should organize each section of your paper into units. For example, you may organize your introduction into 3 subsections, even if they are not labeled as such. In the first subsection, you introduce your topic using paragraphs, or 2 or 3 paragraphs. In the second subsection, you may review relevant literature review, 5 paragraphs, for example. Finally, in the third subsection, you may summarize the research you reviewed and state your hypothesis, maybe 3 to 4 paragraphs. You should organize the information in your method, result, and discussion section in a similar fashion. Also, a best way to avoid this organization is to make an outline of your paper, before you begin writing, and then stick, to the outline. Indicate the main section, introduction, method, etc., and identify the subtopic to be handled, within the major section. Then we come to the style. The the final, or your final paper is a reflection of you as well as your work. A paper can be well organized and clearly written, yet still make a negative impression on your reader because of sloppy presentation. Frequent misspelling, misuse words, and typographical, errors detract significantly from the paper. Work to eliminate them. So you can best avoid misspelling by using a dictionary, or maybe using, the auto corrector in Word, Microsoft Word. If you have difficulty with spelling, although many of us, do, especially those non-native English speaking, have your paper read by a good speller. The spelling checker that comes with, your word processing program also can help, identify some spelling error. However, it will not catch error involving sound-alike words, such as using which when you mean using which, like WITCH, but you mean which is WHICH, pronounced similar but different, or the wrong grammatical form of typing. Instead to type ours, you put yours. Some But not all of these errors may, be flagged by grammar checker. In addition, the spelling checker may not recognize certain technical terms, even when these are spelled correctly. For those, you will need to keep, your dictionary handy. So misuse, words also detract, from your paper. For example, affect and effect are commonly confused. As a verb, affect means to act on, and effect means, to bring about. Avoiding these errors involve acquiring a good vocabulary. If you have trouble in this area, have your paper read by someone who has a good vocabulary. The grammar checker in your word processor also can help by flagging possible grammatical errors and suggesting alternative constructions. Although these are not always completely accurate, they also do help you to spot potential trouble spots. So also, frequent stylistic, errors, distract, your work. Careful proofreading, is essential. Correct any errors you find before you submit your work. Make this correction on your word processor, not pencil them in a printed manuscript. Now we talk about plagiarism and lazy writing. Reference citation must be included in your paper to give the credit to others who have, published or presented, ideas that you have drawn upon. If you use someone else's words or ideas without a proper citation, you are guilty of plagiarism, which is at best unethical and at worst illegal. Penalties for plagiarism can range from a failing grade on an assignment to civil litigation if the plagiarized work is published. A broad rule of thumb to avoid plagiarism is to provide a citation whenever another person's work influences your thinking. Of course, this means citing more than a direct quotation and perhaps of someone else writing, If an idea you present in your paper is not originally yours, then you must cite the source. Writing deficiency closely, related to plagiarism in lazy writing. In lazy writing, an individual simply leaves paragraph after paragraph, out of one or more sources and present them as a paper. Unfortunately, this practice has become rampant since the advent of electronic copy and paste. The difference between plagiarism and lazy writing is that in lazy writing, the individual properly cite, the source of the materials. Avoiding plagiarism and lazy writing. So, although lazy writing is technically not plagiarism, a few instructors will accept paper that relies heavily on quoted materials. Keep the following rules, of thumb in mind when writing a paper. First, always properly cite the source of word and ideas that are not your own. Always, properly cite the source of words and ideas that are not your own. Third, include directly quoted materials in quotation marks or set longer passages off in a block paragraph style and provide a proper citation which include the page number where the materials can be found in the original source. Then fourth, use quoted materials, sparingly and only to support something you have written in your own words. Fifth, make sure any written assignment you turn in is written in your own words. Never turn in a paper that consists of a large amount of materials, taken from other sources with a little of your own writing. This is true even if you made some minor cosmetic changes to the original, materials and properly cited, the original source. So to here we come to the end of today's lecture class. I hope you enjoy, this lecture class. If you have any question, doubt, or you have not understand something, please write your question or comment below. I will answer as much as possible. Uh, Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next lecture class.